Good evening. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. So, and you are running for state rep? Is that?
No, I'm running for county council.
Oh, county council.
Allen County District 2.
Okay, okay. So what made you want to run for the county council?
Well, to be honest, I never saw myself running, and I actually didn't really start noticing what was going on at the local level until 2020.
Oh,
So we were just ignore my children in the background for
no,
a
it's
few
all right.
minutes.
Yeah, it's okay.
In 2020, when everything started happening with COVID and the lockdowns and everything, I really started taking notice and got involved at the local level and started seeing what was going on. And it was really eye-opening. And I came to the conclusion that we don't, me being just one person, I don't really have an impact on the federal level. So focusing on the local level, I saw that we don't really have true representation.
Oh,
We elect people and we assume that their ideology aligns with ours and they're going to go in there and be our voice because that's what they're supposed to do.
right.
But I don't really feel that that's happening. I don't feel like they're really listening to us. They're not doing what we want them to do. And so I decided that after a lot of thought and a lot of prayer and a lot of consideration, a lot of people encouraging me, I decided to step outside of my comfort zone and run for office.
Wow. Well, definitely. Thank you for doing that. I mean, it requires a lot of sacrifice on your side, and especially when you have you know, your mom, you have to take care of your kids and your home. Yeah, and could you give me an example that the local government didn't listen to the people?
Yeah, so at the local level, so what I'm running for is the fiscal body. And the fiscal body, so they handle the money for the county. Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
There you go. Okay, go upstairs, please. I am so sorry.
Oh, no,
So
no.
I had this whole plan for my daughter to put them to bed, and it's not going according to plan.
No.
And my husband is currently out of town on work. So,
Oh, wow.
so the county council, most people don't know the role of the county council. They are the fiscal body, so they handle the money for the county. And so what I've seen in our county is the budget is growing every year. So in the last 11 years, the county budget has grown by almost $100 million.
Oh,
So when the budget grows, that means you have a larger government, right? Because you're supporting more programs. And along with that, our taxes have gone up to support that.
okay.
And I feel like the taxpayers are paying for a lot of tax breaks and stuff that are given to businesses as well. And so that's what kind of made me want to run. But I feel like at all levels, I feel they're out of touch and they're not really listening to the will of their constituents. I mean, it's probably more obvious right now in our state at the state level. I feel like we go down and we testify in bills or we're making calls about bills and they're just continuing with business as usual, doing what they want. They're not really listening to the will of the constituents. So yeah.
Oh, wow. So your county, is that Republican dominant?
Yes, for the last 100 years, I think is what I just recently read. It's been controlled by the Republicans for the last 100 years.
So now you are running for the county council, and do you have to go through the primary?
Yes, I do. I'm actually challenging a 12-year incumbent.
Oh, wow. Okay. So are there any other people running in the primary?
Yeah, in my primary, yeah, there's the incumbent, And
Right.
so I just misspoke. He's been in office 11 years so far, but at the end of this term, it will have been 12 years.
Okay.
And then there's myself and another gentleman who's running in that particular race.
Okay. So do you have any support from the county GOP?
They're really not supposed to support a particular candidate.
Okay.
They're allowing me to, they never challenged me. So they're allowing me to run on the Republican ticket. But I have a feeling that there's probably more support for the incumbent than there would be for myself.
Right.
I'm more of a political outsider. So the good thing about that, and the particular political climate that we're in right now in our state, is I really have a good grasp of where the grassroots movement is.
Right.
And so, because as a political outsider, I'm the founder of Indiana Freedom Coalition. So we've been, over the last year, we've been educating people and getting them involved in what's going on and kind of fighting back at the local level.
Right.
So my support's more grassroots.
Yeah, that's good. That's what's supposed to be, right? Well, still, that's where America is, in a way, is kind of unique. Is that people has the control, if people wants to, and I think in the past is that we just kind of become complacent. We just say, okay, you are a Republican, so therefore we'll check the box. And that's what I did. I mean, I always kind of vote just on the party ticket, right? But I'm not going to do that anymore because I have seen many things that the Republican establishment has done. And so far, definitely they are not listening to people, to the people. I mean, they are not even listening to the Republicans, right? People like supporters, right? So they just have their own thing. I mean, they have their own political agenda. They have their own, power and all that. So yeah, so definitely they're going to face that. I guess it's a kind of uphill battle for you, right, against the incumbent, and also for that long. So he probably had all the connections in the
When
government.
he has big money supporting him too, which is the opposite of me. You know what I mean? I'm going around and asking, every day,
Right.
Americans for money. I'm not getting these big endorsements and cash infusions from big business. But I do agree with you there. A lot of us, and I was guilty of that as well, is just sitting on the sidelines, kind of watching what was going on. I wasn't really well informed. I was more of an apathetic voter. And I just assumed that if I went in and I voted for the person who said they were a Republican, were running on the Republican ticket, they shared my ideology and they were going to be doing what I wanted them to do, until I realized that's not really the case all the time. And I'm a conservative. I'm a very conservative person. And so I look at a lot of these Republicans in office, and I wouldn't necessarily, by the things that they're doing, I wouldn't necessarily call them a Republican.
Right. Yeah.
Republicans believe in smaller government, lower taxes, more, power in the hands of the people.
Right.
And I don't feel like, we have a Republican supermajority in our state, and I don't feel that that is what they believe.
No. Yeah. I mean, for example, we are still in an emergency, and that should the legislature just go along with it. And so that is definitely not a Republican thing to do. I mean, you expect that from the Democrats or the socialists, and they
we should look more like Florida or Texas, not Illinois or Michigan.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think in some ways we're probably even worse than Illinois. just like in terms of kind of policies and all that, the mask mandate and vaccine mandate. So how much power county council has?
Well, again, they're just the fiscal body.
Okay.
So they control the money for all of the county government. So the commissioners, the sheriff's department, the judicial system, all of that, the budgets and the appropriations of funds is controlled by the county council.
Okay.
Outside of that, there's not really, the county council doesn't make, don't do any legislating or anything like that.
Okay.
So it's really just the purse strings.
Right, purse string, which is supposed to be controlled by the people, right? Okay, and you said that like for county, where does the money come from? I mean,
taxing, they tax us at the county level.
Okay.
So some of it comes from your property taxes,
Right.
and then we have some county tax. It's a withholding and paychecks and whatnot. So
yeah,
and I feel like a lot of the times I feel like right now there's not a lot of fiscal oversight, and a lot of things are just being rubber stamped.
Okay.
And so every year the budget is increasing. There's not really because so in the public sector, and same thing with schools, if they appropriate funds, so they budget it, they consider that money spent if it's appropriated. So at the end of the year, if that money is not technically spent, it's still rolled over, and then it's sitting in cash reserves, right? If you're in a business, like I have an accounting background.
Okay.
I'm currently I've been a stay-at-home mom for the last 11 years, but before that I worked in accounting, and I have a business degree with a concentration in accounting. And so I did budgeting at the last job I had before I became a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
And when you're in the private sector, you budget those amounts, but you work on a cash basis. So you don't actually count that as being spent until you've technically spent the money. And so then we would do a lot of looking at the actual spending versus what was budgeted.
Right.
And we would always start at zero when we created the budget for the next year.
Right.
And in the public sector, that's not done. Zero-based budgeting is not used.
Okay.
And so basically they're starting at the budget from the previous year and then adding to it. So every year that budget is going to grow.
Oh, wow. And
I really feel like you should start at zero and build in what you're going to need for the year.
Right.
Because that money, you're pulling that money from the taxpayers, and it's technically considered spent once it's appropriated. And so I feel like we need to return to making fiscal responsibility a priority again. Because the taxpayers aren't an endless line of credit, and they shouldn't be treated that way.
Right.
Oh, we've got this project we want to do, let's just raise taxes, or we want to buy all this new stuff, let's just raise taxes. I feel like we need to be more fiscally responsible, especially looking at the economic situation we could find ourselves in the coming years.
Okay. Well, can say a resident in your county asking to see how the money got spent? Do you, as a resident, do you have that access?
Yes, on the county's website, and this is where I pulled my information from.
Okay.
They have each year they have the budget books out on the county's website, and then you can actually see, like, I think they have like 3 preceding years. They'll show the actual amount spent.
Okay.
So, and then you'll see the budget for that current year. So that's where I'm pulling all of my information from, and it shows how much they collected in tax revenue, the breakdown of tax revenue, the breakdown of all the expenses. So it's all out there publicly available. It's just for most people, we don't pay attention to that. We don't look into that. We've been so busy with our own lives and everything that's going on. And most people, like I said, don't even know what county council does. So it's hard to even, it's hard to, when we have the information, knowledge is power, right? We can't change something if we don't know what's happening.
Right.
And so our group, Indiana Freedom Coalition, has been encouraging people over the last year to get more involved. Go to your school board meetings, go to your city council meetings, your county council meetings, your county commissioner meetings, your township board meetings. Attend the meetings so you can know what's going on, because we need to be informed. I mean, like I said, we can't make better choices and we can't change things if we're not informed about what's going on.
Exactly. Yeah. And can you tell me more about the coalition?
Yeah, so we started, I was looking for ways to get involved, because after the election and everything, last November of 2020, I was feeling really like deflated and defeated. And I'm at home and I'm just like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm just one person. There's not much just one person can do. And then I actually had somebody reach out to me about attending a meeting to take back our state. And so I got involved with another group at our county level and was part of their leadership team. And we decided that our leadership team in Allen County decided we wanted to go a different direction. And so we had started building networking with different liberty groups in our area, because we have Hoosiers for Life, Hoosiers for Medical Liberty, Hoosiers for Gun Rights. And then, so we formed Indiana Freedom Coalition. And the whole idea in the beginning was to bring people in, educate people, get them involved in the democratic process, right? Get them paying attention to what's going on at the local level, get them plugged in, and find out where their passion lies within the liberty movement, and plug them in with one of our coalition members, that they would, that way they could really have an impact, And so we started doing that, and it just kind of grew from there. And then we started taking on issues at the local level. So it's kind of like just bringing people together, educating them, equipping them, and then getting them involved in what's going on. Like I said, we started taking on issues at the local level. We kind of helped Be Not Afraid 365 Indiana get up and going, which is the group that's fighting back against the mask mandates and now the vaccines in the schools. And now they're taking on SEL and CRT. So basically it boils down to parental rights within the school, restoring parental rights within the school. And so we kind of helped them get up and going. And so we've just kind of built this, and we called it a coalition because we're bringing these forces of all these groups together, so that we can be more powerful that way. So when they have a bill that needs to be called on down at the state level, whether it's Purple for Parents or Hoosiers for Medical Liberty or Hoosiers for Life, Hoosiers for Gun Rights, we can activate our entire network and get so many more people making those phone calls. And we send out calls to action. We share those from our coalition members. So yeah, we teach biblical citizenship classes, which we have one going on right now. So we're helping people to get more involved and learn. I mean, because we've been told for so long that, first of all, the way we're taught in school about government and civics is not correct. The government ran schools teach you a certain way to keep the government in power, right? And so when we teach these classes to adults, they're all like, whoa, I never learned that in school. Or, I didn't learn it that way. And so we're showing people that they have more power than they realize. We, the people, hold the power, but we have to reclaim that power. So we teach those classes just to try to help bring people and get more people involved, especially Christians, because unfortunately, we've been told for so long that, we have that separation of church and state, right? And then the way that they pose it is, well, we got to take God out of everything because you can't have your Christian values inserted into politics. But what most people don't understand is the separation of church and state was to keep the government from trampling our religious freedom. So we're trying to get more Christians involved and show through the biblical citizenship classes that this country was founded on our Christian values. And that's why they made God, like the very first principle was based on God and our rights coming from God.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's very clear in the Declaration of Independence. Is made that's the rights come from God, not from government. But you keep saying from the media and also I mean, I think in most of the media the mainstream media is telling you that the government give people rights. It's not really it's not what our country is funded on, right?
Yeah, not here. A lot. I mean, our country is probably the only one that has that those foundational principles, right? So in other countries, the government is where you get your rights from. They're the ultimate authority, the supreme authority. And if the government gives you your rights, the government can take those rights away.
Yeah.
And so the way that our Constitution was set up and the way that the founders really gave us a gift, and we tend to take that for granted.
Right.
But our Constitution is the longest standing Constitution in world history.
Right.
The second longest was only 17 years. And that's why they want to tear down God, and they want to say God doesn't exist, because as soon as they can remove God, which is the first principle of the Declaration of Independence, then they can kind of destroy everything else,
Exactly.
tear it all down.
Right.
And they really want us to be like other countries, because the government wants the right to take our rights away from us.
Yeah, like
when they deem it's necessary.
Right. Like I was born in China, so in China, people just got that's something is driven kind of how to say, kind of in a way it's brainwashed and indoctrinated, and to think that people's power came from the government. So we're always looking up to the government. Anything that any problems, we look up to the government. But that's totally different from what how America is really based on, that our rights from God, and the government is there to protect those rights, right? So the government there to serve us and the government shouldn't take our rights away. But in the past 2 years, and we see that, right? We see the federal government trying to push the vaccine mandate and mask mandate. That's all basically taking away our liberty.
Well, and according to the 9th Amendment, they shouldn't be able to tell us that we shouldn't have those mandates, right? Because the 9th Amendment basically says anything that's not outlined in the Constitution, we have free reign to do what we want as citizens of this country.
Right.
And I think they forget that. And I mean, even the way they teach the Constitution in schools is most people think that our rights come from the Constitution.
Right.
Kind of like France's Constitution. Well, ours is not like that.
Oh, no.
That's why we don't call them privileges, we call them rights.
Right.
And the government is there to protect our rights, not provide our rights.
Yeah.
They're not there to provide for us. And the Constitution was designed to prevent the government from trampling our rights. It's to restrain the government, not to give rights to the people. And I think that when people learn that, they look at things totally different.
Yeah.
And they look at it as, oh my goodness, I have all this power. Like, we have the power.
Right.
And then it's like, well, what do we do now? We have to exercise those rights, right? We have to exercise our power. We need to stop, allowing the government to come in and usurp our power. Right. Because the only way they get their power is because we give it to them.
Yep, exactly. Sometimes, also sometimes they give you some some free stuff, and once you want to take those free stuff, then you become restricted. It's kind of like how the government running the education. Education should be, I mean, since the very beginning is it's local controlled. Right, that's why we have a school board and all that. We elect those school board members, but unfortunately, over the years, and because the money from the federal government, and the federal government has, a lot of say in our schools.
Yeah, because when you take money from the government or you get those free handouts, there's always strings attached.
Exactly.
Even at the state level. I mean, as we continue to take this stimulus money, or this extra, they're trying to codify right now the extra Medicaid, Medicare, and SNAP. Every time you take money from the federal government, there's strings attached.
Exactly.
You're giving up some of your state sovereignty every time you take more money from the federal government, or even as an individual. When we take more of those freebies, those handouts, there's always strings attached. The federal government doesn't give us that out of the goodness of their hearts,
And also, they have in a way, they have a very good leverage, because their money does not, probably the federal money come to the, at the, say, local school level is maybe like 10%, 20%. But with that, then you have to do this, you have to do that. Like, for example, you have to do social emotional learning, and that's a condition attached, right, for getting the federal money. So that's,
well, and along those lines, and this might have been what you were touching on, the ESSER 3. So the stimulus money that was given to the schools, there was ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3. ESSER $3, 20% of that was the largest, I think that was the largest amount that they gave out, the largest lump sum. And 20% of that had to be spent on social emotional learning.
right.
And that had to be appropriated before any other money could be spent. So before the other 80% of the money could be spent, they had to appropriate the 20% for social emotional learning first. And also there's this Title IV grant that they were giving to schools, and that included spending for social emotional learning.
Right.
And so that is how this stuff is getting into the schools, because once the schools take the money, they have to incorporate that.
Right.
And we've even noticed that with even schools that have started accepting like private schools that have accepted the vouchers.
Yeah.
I mean, there's strings attached to
Right.
that money, and that's how they get their claws into the schools, and they push all this stuff into the schools that the parents don't approve of, and the school board should be listening to the parents and pushing back on this, but they're not. I mean, they have the right to do that. They have the power,
Right.
and they're choosing not to.
Yeah, I think school boards basically just became rubber stamps. Whatever the administrators say, they will just approve it. And also the school, like principals, they have their own organization, right? They have an association. So, and a lot of things actually can come through the association to each individual superintendents. Like last December, the Indiana Association of Public School Superintendent had their annual meeting, right? And at the same year, the I-Learn test that year shows that less than 1/3 were proficient at the grade level, less than 1/3. Okay, but in their annual meeting, they didn't even talk about that. So they are running on like 3 themes in that meeting, their annual meeting. So number 1 is talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, and how to kind of implement that in schools. And second one is social emotional learning. And third one is about how to deal with parents who showed up at the school board meetings. And that's all.
I bet.
And
I bet, because they're not used to that. And I can tell you that the school boards, all the local level, people are showing up, in full force.
Right.
And they're trying to get plugged in. They're trying to find out what's going on, and they want to say and what's going on. And it's not just the school boards, it's all the local meetings. They're trying to have them not be in person now, so that they don't have to allow people to attend the meetings. They don't want to look at you. They don't want to hear what you have to say.
No.
They want to continue going along with the status quo, doing things the way they've always done. And they're not happy that their constituents are actually paying attention now.
Yeah.
They should want us to be plugged in. They should want us being involved.
No.
And the fact that they don't speaks volumes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I live in White River Township. So my school district is the Center Grove school district now. The school board meeting now, they don't, you cannot just go there and make a comment. You have to submit that ahead of time, put in the agenda. So if you're not in the agenda, you are not allowed to speak. But whatever you put on there in requests, they won't accept it. So in effect, they can shut off the whole public comment, which is supposed to be there in the first place. So I don't know.
Well, if you look up public meetings though, so there's an Indiana government guide. It doesn't actually state that they have to have public comments. So they'll always say, well, this is a privilege. We are allowing you to speak.
Wow.
And in my mind, well, we elected you. You work for us.
Exactly.
You should have to hear what we want to say. You know what I mean? So I know there was a bill that passed. Well, it passed committee. I'm not sure where it went after that. It passed committee in the House, and I'm not sure if it actually passed the House, went over to the Senate or not, but there was supposed to be one that required school board meetings. There was another one that included like all public meetings, but the one that actually looked like it was kind of gonna succeed this year, you know what I mean, and get passed, was one that said public comment would be required for all school board meetings. So I did not get a chance to follow up on that to see where it is, but they were trying to push for that. Because I think that's very important. I think it's very important at all local level, meetings, because the local level is the closest to the people. The people have more influence and more control, and we should have a say. You know what I mean? It's hard to have a say in Washington, D.C., but we should have a say in Indianapolis, and we should have a say at our school board meetings. Yeah,
exactly. If at the local level, if there is no democracy, then there is no democracy. Right? Because democracy should be practiced at the local level. Wow. Well,
you had mentioned test scores. You mentioned that was one of the things that they discussed at that superintendent's meeting. And I've been looking at stuff over the last 6 months to a year, and just looking at the rate of like test scores dropping across our state. And that is a problem, because and this is what's happening. I have a friend who is a public school teacher, and they said that they have to spend the first period of every day going over social emotional learning stuff. They have to incorporate that in, and it takes one class period every day. And my question is, in order to incorporate this stuff into the school day, what are we cutting out in order to do that? Because teachers and schools are supposed to be educating, not indoctrinating. And so now they're trying to push the CRT stuff, which they actually just recently changed the name. It was, critical race theory, and now it's cultural responsive training.
Cultural responsible,
So, I mean, once they put that stuff into the schools, when are we actually going to be teaching the students? We already have a problem with test scores dropping. And now I think I heard on the next set of report cards that goes out, they're going to be grading them on more than just their grades. Like it's going to include more than just grades, because I don't know if that's a result of that, where these test scores are dropping, and so now they find some other way to use metrics for the kids, or if they're going to be incorporating this other stuff. I have no idea, but we're not on a good trajectory in our state. As far as that's concerned. I think schools need to go back to providing a quality education for children, and allow this other stuff to be handled at home, or at least change it so there's an opt-in. You know what I mean? Like, I understand some people, and the only reason I say this is because I'm in full support of parental rights. And if somebody wants their child to participate in this stuff in school, then I'm all for it. But I think that if you go to an opt-in, you're going to see there's a very small portion of parents who actually want their children being taught this stuff in schools.
Yeah, I mean, shouldn't be that. And also, like when CASA was promoting social emotional learning more than 10 years ago, and their selling point is that this will help academics. But now we see that it's been across the board. It's not helping. It's actually the opposite. And also, you really don't need every day, right? I mean, if there's someone want to teach, handle their emotion, you really don't have to teach that to all the kids and all the time, right? So they actually become a vehicle to sneak in those critical race theory, concept. And also talking about grading, they are pushing for so-called equity, grading by equity. Yeah. So now, not entirely not on academics. They have to take into account, your family background or what kind of race you belong to. Yeah, they are ruining. They are definitely ruining public education. But that's not. But that's not accident. That's by their design. That's what they want to. Yeah.
Well, it's not just emotional. They call it social emotional learning, but it's so much more than that. There's so much more that they squeezed in under that umbrella.
Right. They actually are. If you look at their, the circle they put on there, is basically starting. The core is in the school. They are going to indoctrinate the kids, and from there they're going to push out, to the community and to the family and all that. They're trying to actually to, in a way, trying to change the society, to change that, transform that. I mean, they didn't hide that. I mean, that's what their goal, to transform America into something like, definitely I don't want to live that kind of America. It's more, it's going to be.
Well, and they say it's social emotional learning. So if you talk to a superintendent or something, they say, well, we're just teaching kids how to deal with their emotions. But it's so much more than that. They set them in a circle in the morning, and they will talk to them about, they make these children think that they are damaged, and they are damaged by their family units, by their churches, and they need to, they need to distance themselves, they need to detach themselves from their families and plug into the community and become part of the collective, and everything they do should be for the greater good. This is Marxism sneaking its way into our schools, and people don't see that. They'll say, oh, it's just social emotional learning. We're teaching the children how to deal with their emotions. Well, some of that is it's sex education too. At very young ages, they're teaching them. I mean, they basically have pornography in the schools. And they're teaching this stuff to these children at very young ages, things that should be taught at home by the parents and not in a school setting like that.
Definitely not. I mean, but they did that on purpose. It's the whole neo-Marxism, and that's their tactic. It's basically trying to have kids, have the kids in school, use them to against their parents, and trying to cross, making that conflict, and then they'll tell the kids that you are, the suppression of the society, and the society is not just. So we need to, become activists, and call it social justice activists, right? And to, to change the society. I mean, that's just that's the plan of the neo-Marxists, and that's actually I did some study on that. I mean, this is about 100 years kind of process. It's gradual at first, but now we can see at the end of it. So we are really actually at the last stage of their plan, and they have already controlled, like, the media, control the higher education, control the the entertainment industry. Yeah, and definitely there is a comprehensive sex education that going to cause a lot of damage, because they could say, okay, the school can teach kids, like, say, okay, you are a boy, but you don't want to be a boy. That's fine. You can change it. You can have treatment. You can have surgeries. And I think in the current law, Indiana law, once the kids is past 11-year-old, and the school basically can take over. So the school can become the guardian of the children, and they can arrange to get either hormone treatment or but the parents are on the hook to pay for all that. Even the parents do not agree, but you are on the hook to pay for all that. And if we don't want to go along with it, then the government might step in and took the child away. So this is, yeah, I mean, I think we are not there yet, but it's coming if we don't do anything about it. Because those things have, like in California, you know, in the East Coast, and it will come to us if we don't do anything about it.
Well, yeah, and then so I thought it was a great thing last year when all these parents started taking a stand against their school boards,
Right.
because they might have only come into this fight because of the masks that their kids were forced to wear every day. But once their eyes were opened to what was going on, and now these are the same parents that are fighting back against SEL and CRT and all this curriculum changes and stuff in the schools, and they're taking notice.
Right.
So it might have just been that, you know, I'm upset because my kid has to wear a mask every day, but now they're involved and they've taken notice and they're plugged in and they're taking a stand against this stuff. And I'm really happy to see that, because for a while there, I homeschool my children. So we've actually, this is the 9th year we've homeschooled our children.
That's great.
And I have 5. So we started, our older 2 went to private school through 2nd and 4th grade. And then we pulled them out starting in 3rd and 5th grade. However, even though I'm a homeschool mom, I've gone to plenty of school board meetings for multiple schools over the last year. And I've stood side by side with, you know, my public school counterparts, and I've spoken at their school board meetings, because, you know, we all, I mean, I'm a homeschool mom, and for some people that works. You know, homeschool is a viable option, but it doesn't work for every family. You know, private school doesn't work for every family. So we can't just have everybody pull their kids out and abandon the public school system. Because then there's nobody taking notice of what's going on. And so, I mean, these children are the future of our country.
Exactly.
If we allow them to be indoctrinated, I mean, we're the situation we are right now because of 60 years of government ran school. I mean, I don't even call them public schools, because they're I mean, that's what they are. They're government ran schools.
Government ran school.
They're indoctrination facilities. That's what they've become. And so after 60 years of that, I think that's part of the reason our country is in the situation we're in right now. Because the whole point of public school is to produce, you know, model citizens who aren't going to push back against the government. They're not going to question anything. They're just going to go along with whatever they're told. You know, I came out of public school, and in the last, you know, I'm not going to say how long, but in the last, in the time that I've been out of school, I had to change my, you know, my view of things substantially compared to what I was graduating high school after, you know, going through having a public school education and having that indoctrination. And it wasn't nearly as bad back then as it is now. So, I mean, these children are the future of our country. There's a reason why they're putting this stuff in schools, as, you know, even down to the younger grades, because, I mean, like you said, this is by design. This is not an accident. This is totally by design. It's on purpose. And we need to, one of the things we teach in biblical citizenship, and I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Monumental by Kirk Cameron. So he goes over the Founders Monument. And one of the things that he said is everything is built upon the education of our children. So if they ever wanted to tear down our system, all they'd have to do is take over educating our children.
Mhm.
So it's very and we're seeing that now, right? We're seeing that play out. And so the most important thing we can do is reclaim education of our children.
Definitely.
And so people ask, where's the most important place to start with things if I'm going to be going to meetings or whatever? And I say, go to your school board meetings. You know, and not just when they're having a vote on whether or not your kids have to wear masks. You have to stay involved.
Mhm.
You should have been going to these meetings all along, and maybe your kids wouldn't have been at mask for 2 years. You know what I mean? Like if you had been there all along and we'd been watching them
Mhm.
and stayed plugged in and kept them in check, they wouldn't have been able to step out of line like they have.
Right.
But it's our fault for being apathetic and being uninformed and not being involved and just assuming that the people that we were electing were doing what was in our best interest.
Right.
And so we really let this happen on our watch, and it's our job to turn it around for our children.
Exactly. And also, I think parents need to realize that their experience back then in public school is totally different from what's happening now. So a lot of parents still think, oh, that was okay, right? But they did not realize that things are totally different. But as more and more parents starting to see the truth, I think they will do something about it. I mean, I see that a lot of parents are now running for school board and running for the local government, like you are doing. Do you have I assume you have a Facebook page, right?
I do.
Indiana Freedom Coalition.
Yes. So Indiana Freedom Coalition, we have a Facebook page that's just called Indiana Freedom Coalition.
Right.
We also have a group called Reclaim Indiana.
Oh, okay.
So that is kind of like, it's a statewide network of liberty-minded people and groups across the state where we can go in there, people can share things that are going on, people can collaborate. So it's really wonderful to have that that network.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then we have Indiana Freedom Coalition has a website as well.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. What's that called? Do you know?
It's indianafreedomcoalition.com.
Okay. And how about yours for your campaign? You have a Facebook page too, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And that is Lindsey Hammond for County Council.
Okay.
I think that's what we have it called.
Oh, wonderful.
And I would like, while we're on here and talking about the topic of this SEL stuff in the schools, I'm not sure if you've had an opportunity to view the Mind Polluters movie.
I haven't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a documentary on this stuff that's going on, and they interviewed grassroots leaders, parents, legislators, talking about what's going on in the schools. And it's a documentary called Mind Polluters. It hasn't been picked up by any like streaming provider yet. So it's all by private viewing. Okay. And so the couple, there's a Fort Wayne couple. They're both filmmakers, and they have a company called Fearless Features. Okay. And so they are going around and privately allowing people to view this movie. And in my opinion, all parents, all teachers, all administrators, school board members, legislators, everyone needs to watch this movie before we consider putting any more of this stuff in the schools.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this was eye-opening.
Right.
If you look back at where all this stuff stems from, and they cover that really well. And so that will actually have a viewing March 7th.
Okay.
At 6:30 in Fort Wayne.
6:30 Fort Wayne. Okay.
Yep. And it's at Central Ministries, their Chapel Ridge campus. They're going to have a viewing. And then on March 8th, there's actually going to be kind of like a little forum. Okay. Discussing these things as well. And there's an event on Facebook for that. And there are a couple of bills right now that are actually in the legislature pertaining to this this topic. So one is SB17. Right. So Senate Bill SB17 it was drafted by Purple for Parents, and introduced by Senator Tomes. And that is actually currently stuck in committee in the House. If it does not pass committee tomorrow, it will die.
Right.
So that bill, I'm not sure if you're aware of this.
Yeah,
There are 43 states in our country. So 43 out of 50 states that have obscenity exemptions. It's a law. So basically, if you or I were to distribute, if we there's material in our schools
right.
and material in our public libraries that if you or I were to distribute this to a minor, we would go to jail.
Yep.
But they're allowed to have this in school. It's pornographic material.
Right.
And so SB17, the intentions of that was to close this loophole.
Right.
And so public libraries and schools could not have this material available to children. And for some reason, our state house, they don't want this to pass.
Right.
They've held this up in committee. And then there's another bill, 1134.
Right.
And that was actually supposed to, in my mind, it wasn't a good bill. It was a compromise bill.
Right.
Because with the primaries right around the corner, our legislators are having to not only appease their donors,
right.
like they typically would, all the lobbyists, but they have to appease their constituents. And so this bill didn't make anybody happy on either side.
Right.
And then, so it passed the House, it went over to the Senate. And so Senator Linda Rogers introduced an amendment in committee that gutted the entire bill.
Right.
Everything in it that parents would want, they removed out to appease the teachers union and get them on board. And so what this was doing is it was the bill that was going to have to, teachers were going to have to provide information on the school website or something for what they were going to be teaching in classrooms. Because most people don't know that a lot of this material is actually created by the teachers now. It's not like an out-of-the-box curriculum that they order from McGraw-Hill or wherever it is. It's stuff that they're creating on their own to present in the schoolroom. So we have accreditation for our schools. So you assume that no matter what school you send your kids to in Indiana, they're going to be taught the same material, at the same grade level, but it doesn't happen that way. They have to teach certain topics and subjects, but they don't have to use the same curriculum.
Right.
So what you could be having taught in one school is not necessarily what's being taught in another school. So the teachers are going to have to put all that out there for the parents to review. And then I think you could opt out, right? Which is really cumbersome for parents. I think there should be an opt-in.
Right.
And then they were creating these curriculum committees that were going to decide what curriculum goes in the schools, and they were going to advise the school board or whatever. And they were stacking these, they were already stacking these against parents.
Right.
And and then the other part of that is if there is a complaint, it goes to the appeal process, but the final step is the IDOE.
Yeah.
So the same people who want this stuff in the schools are going to be the ones to decide whether a complaint is valid or not.
Right.
So, but they gutted a lot of, I think they put some of the SB17 language in there regarding the obscenity exemption. And that's why some conservatives were supporting it, but it was still a bad bill. And then they gutted everything out. The parents, they would make it, that would make it worthwhile for parents to appease the union. So it's a really terrible bill.
Okay.
And I think that may have passed committee, which means it will go to the floor for a second reading.
You mean HB 1134?
Yes.
Yeah, that has passed the House, I think. Now it's went to.
It's in committee in the Senate right now, but
committee, Senate committee there. Yeah.
And the Education Committee meets on Wednesdays, which is tomorrow. So tomorrow will be the last committee day for any of these bills to pass and make it to the floor for a second reading. Right. So all the bills, I think the final date for third reading is next Monday. So this will be the last opportunity to get any of this stuff through.
Right.
I was really hoping that they would give SB17 a hearing, because I think that that's a loophole that really needs to be closed in our state, because we shouldn't have that material available in schools. But apparently our state house doesn't agree. So it's really sad. Yeah,
it is sad. And also, I mean, I have been down to State House, give testimony on HB 1134, and SB17, and it become kind of apparent to me that they don't really care. They just want to, do something that they can share to later on tell the voters that they did something.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what this whole legislative session has been about.
Right.
Everything has been compromise, so that they can say, well, we tried that. The House, especially, we tried, and the Senate's the one that failed you. We tried to do, do what you wanted us to do, but everything they're passing are just a bunch of compromise bills.
Right.
They don't do anything to help us. It's the illusion that they're helping us.
Right.
And they're hoping that, that we're still the apathetic people that we were, the uninformed, apathetic people, and that we're not paying attention.
But it's not anymore. Things are different this time. Yeah, I think.
And I think that all started with Representatives Nisley and Jacob getting a bunch of stuff on the record, because these are people who they don't want their words on the record. They don't want their votes on the record. They don't want us to be able to hold them accountable. Exactly. Well, but then they come back and they make all these promises, so we'll reelect them, but they don't want to be held accountable. So they don't want us to know what they're doing, because they're getting a lot of angry constituents calling them up and saying, well, why'd you vote for this? And why didn't you vote for this? And they're really not happy with that situation right now. So, but in my opinion, we can't make America great again until we hold our representatives accountable again. Right. That's the first step. And in order to hold them accountable, we have to have them on the record.
Exactly.
And we need transparency. Right. And that's another problem, is we don't have transparency at any level of government right now.
No. Yeah. But just like,
I apologize, my dogs are fighting in the background. So
like you said earlier, is really we failed, right? We the people, we didn't do our job, and now we have the government that we deserve in some, but we still can change. This is still America, right? We can still do something. We can reclaim our rights back. So I like the name you on your Facebook group, reclaiming Indiana. Yeah, that's definitely.
Yes, because that's part of our mission statement for Indiana Freedom Coalition, is reclaiming our power as we the people.
Right, we the people.
And I think what they forget is
that's all right.
They forget that they have their power comes from the consent of the governed, right? They only have the power that they have to govern us because we say they can do that. Yep. So we need to exercise our rights, and we need to reclaim our power as we the people of Indiana. Yeah, that's very important right now. That's the only way we're going to turn this around.
Yes,
definitely. Is if we start doing that. If we continue to put our heads in the sand and pretend that nothing's going on, then nothing's going to change. It's going to continue to get worse. Right. So in my opinion, most people will say 2020 was a horrible year, it was a horrible thing. Like, I don't even want to think about it. For me, I think that it was no coincidence that this happened in 2020. 2020 means perfect vision. Right. And I really think that it was divine intervention. I think it was God telling us to open our eyes and see what is going on around you. Yeah. Because whether or not we took notice and woke up and started taking a stand against this, all this stuff was still happening behind the scenes. We just didn't know. Right. And so I really think that this was God's way of waking us up and helping us to take notice. Yes. And saying, okay, if you want to save what you've got here, you want to save this wonderful gift that the founders gave you, then you need to wake up and you need to take notice now, or you're going to lose it all.
Yeah, definitely. So that's, I think, a lot of, in a way, as parents, we want to make sure our children and our grandchildren are still living in a country that is free. Yeah, especially like I've seen a lot of Chinese Americans starting to speak up, because we starting to see many parallels of what's happening now in America as something happened back during the Cultural Revolution. And so we really don't want to do our children to have the same experience. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely appreciate you and really your work. Definitely a lot of work you have done, and also with your organization. And so I hope that we can in the future we can have another interview and learn more from you.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. Yeah, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to come on here and speak with you and help bring some more awareness to these things that are going on. So yeah.
Well, good night.
Yes, you too. Have a good night. I'll talk to you soon, hopefully again.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.